It was still an incredibly terrifying, fear-inducing moment. I was kind of walking lockstep with death the entire time. I almost view her as my own guardian angel, the one that was kind of just, hey, I need you to know that I'm here because I'm always here, but I have things to do and people to take care of. And what is my spouse going to do? What is my family going to do? I have a younger brother and a younger sister. I have to be here for them. We just bought our house. We just got a puppy. I don't have to believe that there's some type of divine plan if I don't want to, but don't tell your name to specific things or specific people, or they'll steal it from you. They'll take your power. So life should become more beautiful because you have been given the gift of knowing the expiration date. It better be. Make it the best year of your life.
Elayne, thank you so much for joining today because you are just such a powerhouse and you have such an incredible human story. Being a doula for many years myself, learn about how to be a green witch is kind of like a becoming. There's like a little girl inside of me that's like really excited. I think that's what was really cool when I read your materials. It's like, it's not even new. It's like we're actually coming back. And so why don't we drop in a little bit and just tell us a little bit about who you are, how long you've been dueling, why you've come to this work.
Awesome. So, like you said, I'm Elayne. I have been part of this doula-ship community for as long as I can remember. I actually grew up in a kind of different community where faith-based systems were very loose and not really kind of a main thought. So a lot of what I grew up with were, if you're sick, we're going to give you some mint. We're going to try to see if we can open up your sinuses with crushed peppermint and just get you breathing. Oh, you've got some inflammation? Okay, well, here's this herb that, it was very communal. And with being very communal, we did everything communally, whether it be weddings, births, and then deaths. So as a kid, I was around death a lot and it was very normalized. It wasn't something that was this kind of big to do, if you will. Of course, we were sad. We were losing someone who was a part of our community, our lives, our loved ones, but it was something that we all did together. So that was a big part of me growing up. And then, just seeing some of the more normalized things now. I had a grandmother who was put in an aging center as she got older, and my grandfather passed away. And I watched her decline in that establishment, and she got adequate care. She was taken care of well. She had her medications. She was fed. There were people there to take care of her, but it really seemed like we as the family started becoming more scattered, not visiting as often as we should have. And I'm 15, 16 at the time, not really understanding why we're not going to see grandma once a week as we normally did. Then realized that the people who worked there were providing great care, but they were providing care because that was their job. It was something that paid their bills and something that they studied for and went to school for. And some of them, it was something that they truly loved. But I felt that, yes, you can love what you do and you can take care of my grandmother, but she's my grandmother. I should be taking care of her. That was a turning point for me. Growing up in this community was amazing. But then seeing the way things have become for our aging community or individuals in palliative care, anything like that, kind of being put in a center that's made for death and not in a beautiful way. It's just kind of like, here's your waiting room. It just felt not awesome to me when it was happening to my grandmother. And then I realized, well, if it's happening to my grandmother, it's happening to other people's grandmas and other people's grandpas and cousins and friends and loved ones. And if they don't want to sit with them because they're not comfortable sitting with them in those really raw moments, I can sit with them. That's okay. Not that it doesn't faze me, but I'm okay with holding someone's hand who's dying or about to die, taking their last breath, whatever it may be. I'm okay to be that person to hold their hand because I would want someone to hold mine.
Yeah, I love one thing that you said there is like the current system is sort of set up like the waiting room. It's the space in between and it doesn't feel great. There's something so beautiful about valuing those who are closest to death, but we value those who are closest to birth, like, and being birthed. And yeah, if you're put in a waiting room, it feels like a timeout for like a decade. And I'm like, yeah, that makes me want to lean out of death. That makes me want to lean into a hyper ageism culture. Maybe I
Mm,
can beat this versus something that I would look forward to, like a moment in my life that I could slow down, the moment in my life where I truly get to receive and be held and the reciprocity of the efforts of my life. Can you tell us a little bit? Because I know you have literally touched the veil multiple times. So I'm like, not only do you hold people in death and you were born into this unique community, but you've also you've stepped out of the waiting room and come back. So that's interesting.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, kind of a crazy life, if you will. As my friends would say, I should write a book about it. Couple of times come very, very close. One time did cross over, I guess, and came back. So when I was a child, when I was real young, I was involved in a pretty serious motor vehicle accident with my family. Serious enough that I lost 2 minutes and about 30 seconds of my life. I was considered clinically dead, flatlined, and came back because of paramedics. And I could hear my mom screaming. This car accident was so significant, it actually crushed my mother's pelvis. My younger sister in the back seat had quite a nasty bruising on her cheekbone itself, but the accident was significant. We spun, we flipped. I hit my head so hard on the window that the window broke, and the window in turn broke my skull back. So that's what quote unquote took me out. And don't know what brought me back except for the hands of the paramedics and my mom, and something just deciding that it wasn't my time yet. Beyond that, I am a multiple time cancer survivor as early as my late 20s and as recently as last week. Melanoma kind of keeps coming in, but we keep getting rid of it. But because of that, I've gone through very significant radiographic imaging where they actually put radioactive substance in your body to take pictures and see where the cancer might be. I've been in an aeroplane accident, if you will, where we lost power to the plane for a second or two when after we were struck by lightning. I've been in situations where I probably should not have gotten away as unscathed as I did with other people and where I grew up, and unfortunately the choices I made when I was younger. However, now kind of looking back at my trajectory to where I am, I like to say that I was kind of walking lockstep with death the entire time. And I almost view her, I like to embody death as a she for myself. I almost view her as my own guardian angel, if you will. The one that was kind of just, hey, I need you to know that I'm here because I'm always here, but you have other things to do. But just know that I'm here. So that's truly what it felt like. And looking back as an adult now to all of the situations that I went through and incidences that I've had, I really feel like she was kind of just poking me the whole time, being like, you'll get there one day. You're going to listen at some point. So yes, yes, I've been walking with her for a long time, and being someone who kind of touched the veil, touched the thinning, and then came back from it. I wanna say I feel different, I wanna say I feel special, but I just feel like it puts me at a very unique place to tell people it's not something that's to be feared.
Amazing. When you get a cancer diagnosis, I think this is something that a lot of people, are walking right now as we talk about this. And you get that email or you have that conversation from the doctor. What goes through your mind around death, and how do you metabolize that relationship as allyship?
That is a beautiful question. So for myself, I can't even sit here and say that when I was told the first time that I had cancer, that, oh, I'm a doula. This is fine. I've trained for this. No, it was still an incredibly terrifying and fear-inducing moment. The immediate thoughts in my head are, well, but I have things to do and people to take care of, and what is my spouse going to do? What is my family going to do? I have a younger brother and a younger sister. I have to be here for them. We just bought our house. We just got a puppy. All of these things. And then I had to sit there for a moment and realize none of this is in my control. I don't have to believe that there is some type of divine plan if I don't want to, but at this moment, this is not in my control. So what I can do is control how I react to this. And that became the crux of my power, if you will, is that I could tailor the way I reacted to every single piece of information that was given to me, every single decision I had to make, every single moment that I dealt with a specific emotion or a feeling. It was all part of how I chose to react to that moment. And I just decided I was going to react with positivity and light. And if I couldn't find a piece of positivity or light, I just needed to be one. So when doctors told me, hey, we're going to need to remove very large portions of your skin, there was a piece of me that felt selfish and a little angry at, I have this beautiful artwork, these amazing tattoos that my mother, that is my tattoo artist, I love these pieces of artwork, and you're telling me you need to cut them out of me? Not only that, but that's my flesh, that's my skin. And now you're telling me there's more pieces that need to come off, and I'm going to have these scars. And I realized, okay, I can't control that. This is the way they need to heal me. This is the way that they were taught that they need to heal me. I was not taught how to heal this particular illness. So I need to trust the people who were taught to heal this. And I'm just going to give it to them. And whatever happens with them is what's supposed to happen. I'm just going to believe that it's going to be okay. And I did a little bit of faking it, fake it till you make it for a little, that false positivity, having that mask on. And everyone tells you to step away from that. But that for me truly did help. Now, I would never tell anyone to push through grief or push through negativity with false positivity, but I truly believed everything was going to be okay. And that's how I looked at it. So when I started believing it was going to be okay, the people around me started believing it was going to be okay because they followed my lead, and it's very difficult, I think, especially when we're sitting in grief, to follow the lead of the grieving, because 9 times out of 10, the grieving has no idea which way they're going to go. So for me, it was truly finding that piece of, I'm going to make the conscious decision to be positive in this moment because this is my grief. And this is how I'm going to handle my grief. And my grief is, I'm losing pieces of my flesh. I'm losing artwork that I've had for years. I'm losing pieces of me that I have learned to love. And there is a huge possibility that this could end my life. This is my grief. I'm choosing to be positive in my grief. How someone else deals with that is completely up to them. But what I always tell other people is just be there to listen. If they need someone to listen, be there to listen. And if they have nothing to say, start the conversation. Talk about the weather, talk about sports, a movie you just saw, just start the conversation, because their world has come to a halt and yours has kept spinning, and you need them to know that the world is still spinning, but it's allowed to be different now.
Beautiful. How would you break down if you were to coach somebody from the perspective of being a doula and they said, hey, my mom, my best friend, my partner has just been diagnosed with terminal cancer, or, is going through this process or been in an accident. How do I speak to them? How do I speak to somebody who has lost someone?
One of the first things I always tell people is, if you don't know what to say, just start out with a greeting. And it sounds so simple. It sounds really silly, but sometimes just kind of breaking that little ice wall of not knowing what to say and just going, hey, that sometimes opens up a floodgate, right? I've sat with individuals who, hey, my mom was just diagnosed. It's stage 4. They've told us she's got 8 months. What do I do? There's no right or wrong answer. But one of the things I tell people is, don't do nothing. Don't do nothing. Don't just wait. Don't just wait for something to happen. And don't just wait for the person who this is happening to be the one to act. A lot of the times when we see someone grieving, we wait for their cue. That's okay to do, but also sometimes we just kind of need to take the initiative and leave a meal on someone's front porch or say, "Hey, I know you said today was going to be a sweatpants day, but I actually really, really want this new smoothie and I'm swinging by to pick you up and we're going to go get a smoothie together." Don't let life stop because something about life has changed. If anything, life should become more beautiful because you have been given the gift of knowing the expiration date, if you will. If we all knew exactly when our time here was going to end, how differently would we do things? So if you're given the gift of, hey, you've got a year left, that's going to be the best year of your life. It better be. Make it the best year of your life. If you are in a position to help someone make that the best year of their life, do it. Be there for them. You don't need money. You don't need big, amazing assets. You need a plan and a way to conversate with that person and a way to make sure that that person has the experiences and the joy that they deserve when they have such a finite time left. So be there to listen. When there's nothing to listen to, start the conversation. If you have nothing to talk about, go do something. Remember to bring them outside. Don't let them stay inside. Don't let them stay cooped up. Don't let them stay behind the walls of their home. Don't let them spiral into trying to find a million different new medicines they can take to try something new. If you want to go and look at more research, absolutely, but don't make yourself a guinea pig, if you will, but just be there. Be there for the person. Don't let them spiral. Listen, talk, take them outside, make sure they eat, make sure they drink. And when everything gets too much, tell them it's okay to put it down. It's okay to put it down for a little bit.
Thank you for sharing that. I think there's a lot of people who needed to hear that because, as we know, being doulas, we so often see how isolated that death can be, that the dying part's actually not that bad. It's often that you get to this phase of life and that all of a sudden you are isolated and separated. That's painful.
Yes.
And that you're in a place of navigating yourself. So it's hard to see that bigger picture. And the sum is like, lean in. Be the friend that leans in the moments, whether it's at the end of their life or in the middle of their life, whether it's douling because somebody's had a baby. Drop the food over, whether somebody's had a divorce, pick up the phone and say hi, whether somebody's parent has died. It's like when there's no words, I think it's important to remember that presence is free and it's always available. I was sitting around the other day and meeting some new people, and this guy had come and, early conversation. People are talking about kids. He goes, I have 4 daughters, but one has died. And the whole crowd went, and it kind of got silent, right? And I said, how did she die? What was her name? And everybody kind of was like, like it was like, and I was like, and you could see in him is like, you want to talk about your people. You want to feel like they're honored. It's still relational. They're still real to you because they live in your memories. And every time you think about them, they're there with you. And so to give him an opportunity to allow the 4th daughter to continue to be in presence, as we would ask about, where's your other daughter going to school? And where is this happening? And X, Y, and Z, that it wasn't like left out of his story. And so I always try and say that to people is just be the friend who moves toward them. And when there is no words, there's just even saying there's no words. But I'm going to be here with you right now.
Absolutely. And something that you had mentioned, just, asking that gentleman what her name was, I think people forget the power of saying a name. And, we all have these beautiful, unique names that go to us. And there are pieces of every culture that tell you, oh, don't tell your name to specific things or specific people, or they'll steal it from you. They'll take your power. So there is true power behind a name, I feel. And there are so many movies and sayings and things that tell us that there are 2 deaths. There's one when the person dies, And the second is when their name is said for the last time.
Mm,
And I fully believe that saying the person's name keeps them alive in a very spiritual energy sense. The other thing is, it's statistically proven that when people experience a loss, the time that it takes their support system to kind of fall off is only about 2 to 3 weeks.
I
And
know, isn't that, and it's like 6 months is where you're like, your grief hasn't even really taken. Yeah.
exactly. So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, be the person that shows up, but be the person that continues to remember as well. It doesn't need to be in every single conversation, or it doesn't need to be a quote unquote big thing. But, if it's 8 months down the road and you're doing something with your friend and your friend lost a loved one, your friend lost their spouse, and you are out eating pizza and you know that your friend's late spouse, this was their favorite type of pizza. Say something like, this is going to sound terrible and I'm sorry if it makes you sad, but Mike would love this place. Just bring them back into the conversation, because death doesn't end the relationship, it just changes it. That's it.
That's the one thing that I wish when I'm douling that I could really embody people with, is that this relationship will live on for the rest of your life if they've been a big person in your life, or as long as you desire, because you will continue to keep relating, but it will look different. Do you know what's wild? I was on a Zoom call yesterday and I was speaking to this woman, and she's pouring, she's having a beautiful conversation. And then it's like ding, ding, ding. And I'm like, somebody's trying to get in the, it says the waiting room. It was like somebody's waiting, somebody's waiting. And I was like, nobody's there, nobody's there, nobody's there. And then I was like, who's so and so? Because I was like, there's some strange man trying to get in the Zoom call. And she was like, that was my husband who passed. And I screen capped it and sent it to her. And I was like, this is wild. And I was like, if you're willing to receive it, he's stayed with her. And in these moments of confirmation, he finds a way to make it known. And he was quite funny about it, because I was like, oh my God, there's somebody breaking into the Zoom call. Like, what? And just even in life with our present people, is we are going to have the depth of connection and relating as we believe is possible and as we invest in. And it will be exactly the same when somebody leaves. I know people who have more connection with their loved ones on the other side than they did in the living time.
I wish more people understood that when all of these cultures from years past in history, when all of these cultures had specific rites and days and events to honor the ancestors or ask the ancestors for guidance, and the ancestors weren't these big monoliths of beings. The ancestors were, Grandma Joe who passed away.
Yeah.
Oh, the
Yeah.
the
You're
ancestors.
like, do I want your feedback? Hmm.
Exactly. And the way we connect with them is just different. Like, I love that story, because the perfect example is my grandfather, the man who I literally credit my entire living with. He worked his bum off for decades upon decades to make sure that his grandchildren would be okay when he was gone. And yes, I work a corporate job and I do death dueling because I love this and this is what feeds my soul. But I bought my home because he was able to give me a gift to buy this home. He passed away several years ago before I got my big corporate break, right? His funeral was the day of my interview. And
Mm.
I wasn't going to go to the interview. I told them that my grandfather passed away. They said, no problem, we'll reschedule. My grandmother calls me and says, you get your ass to that interview because your grandfather always said to chase the money. I said, okay, fine. I went to the interview, was offered the job 2 hours after the interview. My grandmother said, Grandpa wanted you to have this. And it is just a paperweight. It's just a paperweight. It's a fake gold-plated dollar sign paperweight. And my grandfather had this on his desk for years and years and years, and he would rub it right before he made a deal every single time. My grandfather called me Ladybug from the time I was a child. There are, at present, 4 ladybugs who have made their way into my office and died on their own right next to my little dollar sign from my grandfather. And I keep them there, and they just sit in like a small shrine, if you will, to my grandfather. But I like to
Mm,
think that that's his little way of going like, I still see you, ladybug, and there's a new one when I need it.
yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Oh, I could just talk to you forever. I think we need to do part 2
Mhm.
and do Green Witch, but I think just getting to meet you and letting the peoples know that you're just this incredible woman on earth serving so beautifully with so much wisdom and knowledge and lived experience. I really appreciate you, Elayne, joining Otherside and all the beautiful work that we're going to do together.
Thank you so much for having me. I am excited for the journey and excited to be part of the murmuration.
Yes. Well, stay tuned then for all things Green Witch, how to have an earth-based funeral, and even like what that means. By reading your work, I'm like, I'm changing the way that I want my body to be processed. So thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Elaine.